The sound went. I had an error on YouTube. It's been an absolute nightmare. Hopefully things are fixed and you can hear us. Let us know in the chat. Sam, say a few words to see if we're synced up all right.
Hi, Az. Hi, everybody. Hopefully it's third time lucky.
I'm going to just pause for a second and hope that people can see and hear us. Let's just see if there's any comments coming in. No one's complaining, but no one's saying anything. But there is a bit of a delay. Anyway, I'm going to do the introduction like it's going to be fine. I've got a good feeling. How are you, Sam? How's your week been? I'm stressed.
I feel like you know how my week has been. I've told you 3 times, but yeah, I got back off holiday on Tuesday to a huge red arrow from 15k last week, and I am actually gutted in some ways because like I couldn't come on the Q&A last week because we were away. When I was at 15k, and I was like, oh, of all the weeks I wanted to Q&A with you, couldn't make it because I was away.
We're still low, apparently.
Okay. Both of us are low, though, so that's better.
Can you just check on Clean Feed where it says your name?
Yeah.
Because your bar doesn't seem to be going up.
No, it doesn't seem to be moving, my bar. It's connected to the shore.
Okay, people are saying that it's bearable, so I'm gonna just.
Yours is moving, mine's not.
I'm gonna proceed. I'm gonna move this a little bit closer to me, and we're gonna...
Hang on, is that better?
Yeah, but now we can't see you.
Hang on, that's fine. I can make it. Turn that back on.
Yep.
Right.
Is that better, everyone?
Oh no. So every time I come off, every time I come off this where I can see you, it mutes my Clean Feed bars.
Oh, I see. Well, I can hear you, and people are saying it's okay. So, I think we just go with what we've got, and yeah, it just says you're louder. I don't understand how you can be louder. We're using the same tech. Anyway, we're gonna go with it. If the sound's off, I apologise. We're gonna just go with it. I'll try and talk into the mic. I'm gonna move a little bit further down in my seat. Talk to the microphone as best I can. I mean, everyone's saying that I'm low, but this is exactly how I use it in every other stream I do and don't have a problem. So there's something about this stream, some kind of setting that's not working. Anyway, let's continue. I will talk a bit louder. Let's go for it. It's the Q&A. First question, how do I sort out the sound? Can anyone answer that? But if not, then it's fine. Can't hear you at all now, Sam. No. What have you done? Your sound's gone completely. What have you done?
I mean, I don't think I've done anything.
You're back.
But yeah, but now you can't see me. Okay, so the problem we're going to have now is I think when I go off of Clean Feed and turn the mic on.
What? It was just fine. Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. But this is coming through Ninja, not coming through Clean Feed. Clean Feed's muted at my end.
Okay, well that's working. So let's just leave it. Let's just leave it at that. Jesus Christ. We get this new stuff coming in to make our lives easier. And then here we are.
Do you know what we can do? We can sort this out on Sunday when we see each other.
I know. Is it a roast, a barbecue? What
would you like?
Oh.
Whatever you want. You come for whatever you want.
Maybe a roast? Roast would be nice. Although Lee was keen to do a barbecue when we met at Fest.
Yeah. I'll talk to him. I'll message you.
Good.
We'll decide, but we'll do something fun.
Right. Well, I'm very stressed.
It involves sorting this stream out as well.
I'm very stressed. Let's go. I've been doing these for years, literally years. How do I still have problems doing these? Let's take some questions from the chat. Let's start with the super chats that we had on the last stream, which, as much as I'm an idiot, at least I took note of those before we're going in. So the first super chat we had was from Chintan Makshani. And he sent us his team of Onana, Estepinian, Chilwell, Saliba, Bruno, Rashford, Saka, Martinelli, Mbeumo, Haaland, Watkins. Very kind of template there. With Turner, Udogie, Mubama and Kabore. 2 free transfers. Watkins to Jackson or Alvarez, or Onana to Sanchez to free up funds. What do you think of Watkins? He scored a hat-trick last night. Would you be moving him on for Jackson?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think. I think Aston Villa looked good in attack. I mean, they certainly did against Hibs last night. The problem I have slightly with Jackson is that it's the same problem I have with Chelsea a little bit generally. I still don't really know who the best asset is at Chelsea. Like, is it?
You've gone very quiet, Sam.
Okay. Right, hang on. Turn my mic off a bit. This is a disaster. Is that better? Do you want me to go up higher?
I don't know. It's so quiet. There's just something not right. I literally just don't know what it is, because it just shouldn't be doing this. There's no setting that I've got which would make you quiet.
You know, I was loud before.
I know.
Quiet. Shall I carry on?
You need to. Can the mic go higher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. There you go. I think
I
think you must have knocked the sound down, because it's good now.
It's okay now.
That's perfect.
Right.
Yeah, don't touch anything.
What is it with us? Why are we like this? This is going to make for a terrible pod, by the way. This gets turned into a podcast. At least the guys in the chat can see what's going on.
Who does our editing on the pod?
Oh, God.
I think that was your fault that time. I think you knocked your mic volume right down.
You claimed it was my fault last time we were on together as well, and it clearly wasn't, because the tech is still your problem. No, I wouldn't sell Watkins for Jackson. I think we should. I think my issue with Jackson is we haven't seen any returns from him so far, whereas Watkins, we have been seeing some level of returns. I think the idea of don't touch anything, the idea of freeing up some money is attractive, but goalkeeping it is ridiculous this stream.
I'm drunk. I need a bloody drink after this.
Should we have some wine? I don't even drink, and I feel like I need a glass of wine. I've completely lost my train of thought now as well. What was I talking about? Watkins and Jackson.
Watkins and Jackson. People are paying us for this, Sam. We've sent in bloody super chats.
I've lost it now. I've completely lost it. Oh, right. Watkins and Jackson. No, I wouldn't sell Watkins and Jackson. What was his other option? To change the goalkeeper. That sounds just as bad. I wouldn't go taking Onana out ahead of Forest at home feels not great either.
So you wouldn't do Watkins to Jackson or Alvarez, and you wouldn't do Onana to Sanchez?
No. I would, if that was my team, I'd probably run through them again.
It's a good team. Onana, Estupinan, Chilwell, Saliba, Bruno, Rashford, Saka, Martinelli, Mbeumo, Haaland, Watkins. I literally don't know what to do with that team. I would do Watkins to Jackson with that team.
It's a really good team. I mean, I don't like the double up of United. That's the weakest point, I think, having both of them. So I would be inclined.
Do what I did Fernandes to Foden this week. So
that would be my inclination, would be to sell one of those two for Foden.
I don't know. I think Watkins to Jackson.
Who's Jackin?
I don't know anything anymore. Get me to the weekend. I'm sorry, Chintan. It's an awful answer. Basically, Sam is saying Fernandes to Foden potentially. I think Watkins to Jackson.
Although I think I'd sell Rashford over Bruno.
Yeah, even with Højlund potentially fit.
Yeah, but it's the potentially fit thing that's the issue, isn't it? Like if we were certain that either Martial or Højlund were going to start, then I'd keep Bruno. I'd keep Rashford. But if we're not certain, then I'd sell Rashford. I don't think you want the double up of those two moving forward, so that's probably, I'd just pick one of them. Yeah,
okay. And the other super chat was from Cameron Starr. Love you guys, but he doesn't anymore.
He hates us now.
Messed around so much. Haaland triple captain to get it out of the way. Not in an away game, I don't think.
I wouldn't in an away game. No, I wouldn't. Not in an away game. And I don't think you want to get the triple captain armband out the way. Like, I think if you want to get the bench boost out the way, then fine. But for me, I'd just hold the triple captain. He'll have a home game against Sheffield United at some point. You just play it then.
Yep. Malk B, very critical of Jackson. Jackson's the new Havertz. So frustrating. He hasn't scored yet. Obviously, he's got the 2 yellow cards as well. Chelsea have struggled in that number 9 position for many years now to get a goal scorer in. Is he going to be their clinical scorer? That hasn't really been his career. He hasn't done it consistently. But the fixtures are so good, right, that he's got to score a couple of goals in the next few games, surely.
Yes, but this is why I hesitated on the Watkins question, because the fixtures are good and he should score a couple in that period. But I also think that Watkins could easily score a couple in that period as well, with slightly tougher fixtures. And we know that Watkins is tried and tested in the Premier League, whereas Jackson just hasn't really been. He hasn't really been returned. Well, he hasn't returned yet, and he hasn't. I don't think that he's going to be one of those players that regularly returns big hauls, even in these nice fixtures. I think we could see. We might see that it gets spread across that Chelsea team. There are other players in there that potentially could be good options. I'm going to wait on Chelsea, watch them on Friday against Luton, and then use that game as my decision maker in terms of which Chelsea asset to go for. Because I do think you want a Chelsea attacker. I just don't think it's clear at the moment as to which one. And Jackson's the obvious one, because we're all kind of a bit... It's difficult, isn't it, with the midfielders to pick out somebody to go to, because there's so many great options in midfield that you don't necessarily want to waste one of them on a Chelsea midfielder. So Jackson's the obvious pick because he's in the attack. However, I'm not sure that he's the standout pick from Chelsea yet, and therefore I'm going to wait. Just have Chilwell for Friday night's game. Appreciate that there's probably a Chelsea haul somewhere in there, and I'm going to miss it on Friday night, but they're lowly owned, and then I'll invest for game week 4 onwards, when the fixtures still continue to be nice for a long time.
Yeah, I get that way of looking at things. I'm just of the opinion he's got no goals, but he's got his XGI is high, so I think it's like 0.7, something like that. He's had some decent chances. The fixtures are really nice, and I'm actually if he'd scored a goal in either of the last 2 games, I reckon his ownership would be an extra 10% on what it is.
Probably, yeah.
So I'm looking at okay, no one's really going for him. Now with the Pedro news, people aren't making that switch over. And I just think Luton, he could come in, and Chelsea could struggle. Luton could put up a low block. They've struggled against low block teams in the past. I was not impressed with them against Brighton particularly, though. I thought we created so many chances against them in that match. I'd expect Chelsea to create plenty of chances against them again.
Difference is that you've got the players that convert the chances, whereas Chelsea will convert. They will create, but will they convert?
This is it. So all I'm hoping for is they do actually convert some of those, and if they run out 3 or 4-0 winners in that match, then you've got to think Jackson's going to get something. So I'm willing to take the punt on it. I can see why people are being a little bit hesitant, but I think the Luton game is perfect. I can see why people are waiting for him to audition and then get him in after that, but I'm going in early to see. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Look, we're fine now. Everything's fine. Everything's working great.
Everything's fine.
It's all good.
Everything's fine.
The first 10 minutes.
It's one of those where you see somebody in the water, everything's fine, and then underneath there, legs are going
I know. My leg is twitching as well. Damien Brains, one of our regulars. Would you rather be deaf or blind? Easy question. Deaf after today, like most of the bloody stream is probably feeling. I imagine. I agree. Definitely not missing anything.
Can watch football if I was. It'd be much harder.
Exactly. Which City defender would you go for? Firstly, would you go for any City defender?
The City defence is the one I hate, because I always end up in a trap with the City defence. Whoever I seem to get, since the days of good old Diaz and Cancelo, and you could absolutely hang your hat on those two playing, and you'd have them and you just love them and they get returns. It was great. Since that's ended, it's become much more difficult to invest in City, because Pep moves them around all the time. There isn't really a guaranteed starter amongst the defence apart from Edison, and we all know how that ended for me last season when I had him. And also, I don't think you really want to make goalkeeper swaps necessarily at this point in the season. If you're on wildcard, that's fine. If you are in a position where your squad is literally perfect and you've got a transfer to burn, then yes, a keeper swap to Edison, fine. I'm fine with that. When you look at the players that have started the last 2, it's Akanji and Walker in the defence. So they're the only 2 with the back-to-back clean sheets locked in. You've obviously got the new guy who started in game week 2. I would suspect that he's going to start game week 3 as well. Walker, maybe. If I was gonna be forced to buy a City defender, maybe it would be Walker, maybe it'd be How do you say it? Guardiol? How do you pronounce his name? Guardiol. Yeah,
Gvardiol would be
maybe
the one
it'd
I'd
probably
get.
it'd be one of those two for me.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Diaz is being mentioned at 5-5. I think he's likely to play the majority of games. He's effectively their most established and best defender. I just think that Gvardiol is going to play the majority of games that he's available for, because Pepper's spent big money on him, and he's done that with defenders in the past, and they've gone kind of straight into the side. And I like Ake, but Gvardiol is a better defender than Ake, so why would Ake play more minutes than him? So I like Gvardiol. I think he's a little bit cheaper. He'd be the one. To answer K Mador's question, top 3 City defenders in order, probably Gvardiol, Diaz, and then Akanji would probably be the three.
Yeah, I'd have whatever his name is, and then Walker, and then Edison.
Oh God, Edison!
We're back there again. Every year.
I'm so impressed. And that you go back there.
I'm so loyal, man.
You are,
so
aren't you?
Loyal.
Clearly. That's why I keep doing these streams, even despite all these tech issues. TomTom977, Alvarez to Jackson, worth it with a free transfer? No way.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I
Maybe next week, if City sign a load of players, but which they might, then it might affect Alvarez. But for me, I would not be taking Alvarez out. If anything, he's one of my players that I would look to target this week.
He could go mad this week against Sheffield United.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Watkins to Jackson, I think there's an upside I think the fixture for Chelsea is better. I think Burnley are a better team than Luton, and they're at home as well. But Sheffield United are going to lose that game by 3 or 4. I think Luton probably will as well, but I wouldn't make that move for free.
No, me neither.
No, definitely not.
No.
Damien Brains again. Start Vissa or João Pedro?
Both.
That's not an option, Sam.
João Pedro's. I mean, that's got to be an option. Surely there's got to be an option there for that. Vissa's going to do well. I'm absolutely sure of it. His underlying numbers are fantastic, and he is the Brentford asset that I want most at the moment. And then there's João Pedro, who, if you'd have asked me, the police are coming to get me now.
Heard about your sound.
Heard about my sound issues. Should have shut the window. If you'd have asked me on Monday, Tuesday about João Pedro, the answer probably would have been different. It would probably been an easy bench Pedro, but with the Enciso news, I think things become much more different at Brighton, and I would expect Pedro to get the start now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think he probably will. I think, like I was saying to Mark yesterday on Black Box, it always worries me when a manager says he's not doing the things that I want him to do, and that's what De Zerbi said. He said he's not.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
The work rate isn't there, or something like that. That is a big flag for me, because the work rate is the number one thing that's got to be there. If De Zerbi doesn't feel that Pedro is putting in enough effort, his spot in the team is at risk, no matter who's fit and who's not. Because Lallana could play there. He could move Gross up there. He could play Ferguson and Welbeck up top. We have got options that can play in that role. I think Pedro starts and comes in, but if De Zerbi isn't happy again with him, we could see him drop out completely until he's ready.
But don't you also think that those words from De Zerbi are exactly what João Pedro, like, for a player like João Pedro, hearing that from the manager, if that would, like, I would expect that he's the type of player that might inspire him to just put the work rate in for this game, particularly now knowing that the player that took his position in game week 2 is out with what looks to be quite a long-term injury, if we believe the rumours. So this is a perfect opportunity for him to nail down that spot as his own and prove to the manager that he is what we will hope he will be from an FPL perspective. So I'd start them both. If you have to bench one of them, then I think you bench Pedro and you play Vissa. But I would want to start them both. And as for the second part, the stick or twist on Saka, I think that is, that's probably come about as a result of the penalty thing last weekend. And having podded with Jules this morning, he was saying that he would expect that there might be some rotation there. Just because Odegaard took this one doesn't mean that he takes the next one. That it just felt like Saka didn't want this one. It wasn't comfortable, didn't want it from the look that he gave Odegaard, so Odegaard stepped up and took it. But that doesn't mean that Saka will always feel that way about taking a penalty. Different moment, different penalty, different response from him potentially. So for me, I absolutely would not be selling Saka ahead of the home fixture that they have this weekend. I think you stick on Saka if you've got him.
Yeah, I completely agree. Not a home game against Fulham. Anyone could score in that, the way they're playing. at the moment. Very lucky against Everton, and then just so poor against Brentford in the last match. Just finally on Pedro, just because I remembered the last time I remember De Zerbi saying about a player's work rate was Trossard, who he took out the team
And then he sold him.
I mean, if he does that after one game of Pedro, the player that he's spent a record fee on signing, I think that's very unlikely. But I think it just shows that there's a bit of doubt around it. But Saka, I mean, he's not a sell. If Arsenal get another penalty against Fulham and Odegaard takes it, and the fixtures turn, there's a conversation to be had. But for now, I think we need to just assume that he's back on penalties and he's going to be fine. There's a lot of chat in the chat about Salah.
Yeah, I saw this just before we were coming on.
Off to Saudi? Surely not.
Well, look, nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing surprises me anymore. I was utterly confused by a lot of the transfers that have happened over the course of this summer. I'm thinking about selling Salah this week. It has absolutely nothing to do with these rumours about him wanting to leave Liverpool, though, and more to do with the fact that I think my bench is not good. And that was fine in game week 1 when I was absolutely sure that everyone was going to play. And now there's some uncertainty around some of my players, and there's a couple of injuries in there. You know, James Maddison wasn't pitched in training for Spurs today. Not expecting him to play at the weekend. That gives me a bit of an issue there that I've got to deal with. And I don't really want to take Maddison out because it seems like it's quite a short-term injury for him anyway. So for me, looking at my team, I've got one weak point, and that's Bruno Fernandes, but the underlying stats are decent, and I don't think I can bring myself to sell him ahead of that Nottingham Forest at home game. So Salah is the only other route that I have, really, to freeing up some budgets that I can have Vissa as my second striker alongside Pedro and Haaland, which is what I really want to do this week. So that would also enable me to have Foden for the game against Sheffield United. So I think Salah's going to be it could be really interesting, a lot of managers, if you pay attention to what's being said at the moment, and if there's any truth in what's being said, then it could be sold by a lot of FPL managers this week.
Sure. I mean, we're 3 weeks into the season. Like, that would be so ridiculous, really, for Klopp to decide. I mean, they haven't even got a replacement for him. Like, if the right wing is a weakness, really, if anything does happen to Salah. I mean, apparently he would become the highest paid player in the Saudi league, overtaking Cristiano Ronaldo. David Ornstein has tweeted saying there is interest for him. No.
Well, I'm not surprised that there's interest for him. That doesn't shock me. Like, of course,
exactly. There's interest, and then does he actually?
There'll absolutely be interest, because there's interest for anybody. The Saudi league's got all the money. There's interest for everybody there, so that does not surprise me. The bigger thing is there any interest from Liverpool in selling Salah, given that we think he'll probably leave next year anyway? Oh, as you've just said on the screen, is there any interest in selling him now for big money, knowing that you're probably losing him next summer anyway? Maybe. Is there any interest from Salah to go there? Again, don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one to monitor, because, you know, if he does go for whatever reason, Klopp isn't going to be happy with that the board have sanctioned that, and then there could be repercussions on other players and their performances this season. Obviously, there'd be one premium essentially in the game for us as FPL players as well. So, yeah, I guess we just wait and see. But I think, you know, apart from the uncertainty of Salah, I can see why people are selling him this week, because it's a tricky game against Newcastle. And lots of people have got 2 free transfers, and you can use that money to move around to other players. I mean, I look at Foden, for example. I look at Mbumo and Matoma. If I didn't have any of those and I had Salah away at Newcastle, I think I could get one of those and strengthen.
You've just described my team as.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, I don't know why.
Yeah, don't have any of them.
I'm not advising you. You're 320k in the world. You're absolutely
No, but what you've just articulated is exactly how I feel. So I'm looking at Salah in my team with a difficult game against Newcastle, which, by the way, we get to watch with Lee, so that'll be fun for you on Sunday afternoon. And I look at that and go, right, okay, Salah, and I said this on the official pod, if you haven't listened to it, it's out now. Salah hasn't been bad. Like, my desire or my thought process behind selling Salah has nothing to do with Salah's performances in game weeks 1 and game week 2. It hasn't. But it's got everything to do with the performances of other players and how I'm looking at my squad going, well, I'd like you and I'd like you, but I don't have any money. So the only way to have you is to free it up. Now, I could do that by selling Bruno Fernandes, but I much prefer the fixture that Bruno has this week. So instead, what I'll likely do is sell Salah, use the money to get Foden and probably Visser up top as my third striker. And then know that if next week, if Bruno still hasn't performed in game week 3, I can easily get back to Salah if I want to. Or more likely, I could go for a Jota or a Luis Diaz instead to cover out that Liverpool attack, because they've also been performing really well in these opening weeks too. So I don't, yes, Salah could hurt me, but I don't think it's going to be that bad given the players that I can have. I can have 2 really good players instead.
I think it'd be a massive shame if Salah went, just like what Tayyip says.
Could lose Kane at the same time.
I know, to
Salah,
lose Kane and Salah in one window and to just have Haaland. I mean, I'm hoping that, in a few weeks, Salah becomes a potential captain option for us again. And suddenly, because it's been interesting at the start of the season. There's some people going with Salah like yourself, others like me.
I did,
not starting with him. You'll be disappointed with Bournemouth, obviously. But, if you've got 15 points in that, then, you wouldn't probably be considering selling him. And lots of people would be thinking about buying him. Yeah. And now it looks like there's these uncertainty around whether he's going to even be at the team. And it's kind of like, oh, well, that kind of makes a lot of decisions for them as well. So, yeah. Eze to City, another potential transfer before the deadline.
Yeah.
That kills him as an option, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So it takes away that extra 6.5 option. It basically takes us back to Mbeumo, Mitoma and Diaby if you want to spend around 6.5 now, because 2 of them have price rises, but it takes us back down to those 3. I mean, there are other options that you can go to if you've got slightly more money, if you want to save a bit. Like if I had Eze this week, I would be really tempted to sell him for Pape Sarr at Spurs, take the couple of mil and use that couple of mil to get Visser up top, because Pape Sarr as a cheap 5th midfielder looks perfect.
Expecting you to recommend Pape Sarr on the stream.
Why? Did you not watch the game against Manchester United?
Yeah, but
he looked great.
Is he attacking? He's not featuring on.
He's had double the chances of any Spurs player so far.
Wow. He's
also just behind Rashford in those stakes as well, 1 less. He's had 6. Rashford's had 7.
How much did he? 5?
So, 4.5, I think.
4.5.
Yeah, I think so. Let me just double check that. But yeah, so you could, like, if I had Eze, I wouldn't be holding him if he goes to City. I would, 4.5, and I just think he becomes a non-asset at City. He's doing okay. Like, he's doing all the creative stuff. The underlying stats are brilliant for Eze when you look at them. But then I watched him in a game against Arsenal and was like, they just don't look like they're going to convert any of those chances that he's creating. And he's not stepping up. And if he goes to Man City, maybe that's why. Because if he's, all the rumours of him going to City, I think he becomes a non-asset there. I think you could go across to Diaby. If you don't have Diaby, that's an easy move to make. If you've got a little bit more money, you can take him up a little bit to Mitoma or Mbeumo, or a little bit further to the 7 bracket. But for me, if I had Eze, that's what I'd do. I'd get Pape Sarr, take the money and use that money to get somebody better, because Pape Sarr's going to start. His performance against Man United in game week 2 was great. He will start for Spurs in that midfield. He's creating, he's attacking as well, particularly when he's playing alongside players like Højbjerg or the slightly more defensive-minded of the midfielders. Yeah, he'll sit in that more attacking of the 2 roles. It all might shift when Bentancur comes back into the Spurs midfield, of course. But for right now, he could be the sort of Andreas Pereira equivalent. At the start of this season, we've been talking so much about the midfielders and how important they are. But the forwards are really starting to show up now with players like Alvarez, like Visser, potentially like Jackson. We might be having a conversation about him next week. We've already spoken a lot about Watkins. We're suddenly in a place where the midfielders are just starting to, well, the forwards are starting to just become a bit more like you want to invest there. So maybe having a 4.5 option in a very attacking Spurs team where there's a lot of chances being created isn't hugely bad. Now, the Maddison thing's a bit of a caveat.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What does that mean for the team?
Well,
And what do you do if
it's
you've
not.
got him, right? When we don't have the press conference news yet, but what if he's out for a week, say? Because then it's 2 promoted teams back to back, Burnley and Sheffield United. Tricky sell.
So I've got Madders, and obviously he's taken a price rise. So if I sell him, I'm only going to get the 7.5 back, but I have to pay 7.6 to bring him back in. From what's being suggested, it seems to me like it's very much I am a Spurs fan on that side. I've actually got my new Spurs shirt around somewhere. I don't know where I've put it.
You're definitely not Champions of Europe, Sam.
No, that's Liverpool. Oh God, wrong side. That's Liverpool. That's Lee. I think it's disastrous in many ways for the way that we play in terms of who comes in and takes that position. My guess is he'll probably start with somebody like Lo Celso in that position, but long term it'll be Maddison straight back in as soon as he's fit. It doesn't seem, from what I'm hearing, that it's like a really long term thing, but probably not going to make it for the Bournemouth game at the weekend. So that makes me want to strengthen my bench even further, because of course if I'm going to have to bench Maddison this week, then I do need to make sure that I've got somebody decent to come off of it, which again throws me back to the selling Salah thing. So yeah, I think Maddison, we're just going to have to wait and see what Postecoglou's got to say tomorrow. If he says anything further than he'll be back next week, then I think you hold. If he says he's out till after the international break, then there's more of a conversation, because that 0.1 could easily disappear in value in those 2 weeks that he's out.
Yep. Nope. Very good. Very nice. As I said, I was not expecting Pape Sarr to be mentioned, but just listen to Sam. She's the best of all of us.
No, not really.
I'm not even going to try and put him down. Nuclear Atoms will Brighton finish in the top 4? Probably not. Let's be honest.
You're going to win the league?
I mean, mate, well, we're top of the league at the moment, so no reason.
That's what I was teeing you up for. I was teeing you up for going, yeah, we're top right now.
We are top. I think when Europe hits, it's gonna hurt us. I don't think we can. I think we can beat anyone on our day. Genuinely, I think we're that good under Zerbi, but it's very hard to win enough games to finish in the top 4. And I think, with the resources that a lot of the teams have, City, United, Newcastle, Chelsea, maybe if they can get their act together, Liverpool as well. These are teams where it's going to be hard for us to break into that with the squad we've got. But I'd hope we could finish kind of top 8 again. I think looking at some of the other teams, we should comfortably finish in the top 8. I think and kind of see what happens. I think I think in Europe, I think we could genuinely do really, really well.
I agree.
We're going to take teams by surprise. We're going to and we've got the talent to be able to do it. So yeah, I don't know. Top 4 may be a bit optimistic, but decent run in Europe and a decent finish. I'm really excited for this season. Ferguson's got to come in the team though. So let's get him in. A few people mentioned my sound. We know. Where have you been, Brian? Trust me, the fact you can even hear me is better than maybe it was before. Tan, how did you get your message to be answered? If you want it to guarantee to be answered, send us a super chat. If you ask us a decent enough question, though, not a super chat, I will try and answer it. Just we get a lot in, so I just kind of have to pick out ones that I kind of catch my eye. So that's the way to do that. Ryan Todd, thoughts on Trippier?
Wow.
The
difficult fixture
turn soon, don't they? Fairly soon.
Yeah, difficult fixture in game week 3 with Liverpool. I think it's game week 5, isn't it, that the Newcastle fixtures become really attractive looking. Pretty sure it's 5.
5's Brentford at home. 6 is Sheffield United, and then Burnley.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 ways I would look at this. One is you could go early on Trippier, because Liverpool defensively all over the place. So you could easily get some attacking returns out of Trippier from set pieces, etc. against them this weekend. My view on Trippier is I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait for the fixtures to swing, and then when they do, I'll look to invest in the Newcastle defence. Now, I think there is a bit more of a question mark this year with the do you spend the money on Trippier or do you just go for Botman? Because Botman is that much cheaper, so you can free up the budget for elsewhere. Having said all of that, if Salah goes to Saudi, then you don't need to worry about the budget.
Exactly.
Just have anyone you want.
Yep.
So Trippier, and by the time that we get to that point where the Newcastle fixtures swing and there might be clean sheets, we will know because transfer window will have closed.
Although I don't know how long the Saudi transfer window stays open for.
Oh, is theirs the one that's open for ages?
Because potentially they could take him outside of our transfer window, and Liverpool don't have a replacement at all, and don't have any
Oh my
time
God,
to get
can you
one in.
imagine what Klopp will say?
Well,
Disaster.
Somebody in the chat mentioned Klopp can't be too happy with how the Lavia Casado thing went down as well. I mean, no DM coming in. I mean, I know Endo.
Did you hear him when he talked to Endo? When Endo arrived in the changing rooms, and he said something to him like, there was a video that Liverpool posted, and he just basically went, "We really need you.
Yeah,
are you ready for tomorrow?" And then played him the next day.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, yeah, like
they really need him, but he's
really
he's third
still
choice.
not the
He's
exactly.
Third,
and how do you feel coming into that, your third choice?
And he's gone from
and
being
if you're Liverpool,
he's
how
gone
do
from
you
being
feel?
captain of Stuttgart to third choice makeshift signing at Liverpool. It's
And if you're the rest of the Liverpool squad, how do you feel about him? Because you know that he's not what everyone wanted.
Yeah. And then there's a Salah rumblings going on. It's a
and
strange
Trent had
camp.
ice on him.
Yeah, it's a strange camp there at the moment. So yeah, we'll have to see kind of what happens. A question from Iprowdo Jackson. And I've kind of got this with Richarlison as well. This one's about Havertz. It's about kind of underperforming players who have got potential. Like Havertz, I know all the criticism aimed at him, but he's still an attacking midfielder in a top 2, potentially, team. Jesus is back training, which might unlock him. But how much patience do you show in players like Havertz, in Richarlison?
No. Havertz, I just wouldn't show any patience. And that's because last season he got plenty of opportunity in that Chelsea team and didn't perform. And I think in this Arsenal team, yes, he might be unlocked by Jesus coming back, but I think it's more likely to unlock Martinelli, to be honest, Jesus coming back. So Havertz, no, I wouldn't show any patience at all. Richarlison, I don't know if I show any patience with him either, to be honest. I think if Maddison's disappears, then that makes Richarlison even worse asset because who's creating for him now? And I think it only takes Sonny to score 1 goal playing up top in that number 9 slot for Postecoglou to go, all right, you stay there and I'll play Solomon out there because Solomon is decent on Son's side.
Do you think Richarlison's bringing enough other parts of the team to be safe? Or is the lack of goals just going to mean that his place is very much at risk?
No, I don't think his place is at risk in terms of the Spurs starting 11 at the moment. I think he starts for Spurs every week for now because we don't really have anyone else that can start there.
Unless he moves Son up top and
unless
Son
you
comes in.
Exactly. Unless you play Son out of position. But Son out of position in the number 9 is not the best. It's fine, but it's not the best. Is it better than Richarlison? Maybe, but not there's not loads in it. Like it's not like it's massively better to play Sonny there. It would make Son a more attractive FPL option, that's for sure, than having him stuck out wide. I think Postecoglou will give Richarlison the chance. I think he will quite like that Richarlison strop that we saw at the weekend when he came off and was, sat on the bench and he had a right old mard on. And I think that's the sort of thing that Postecoglou will like because he's frustrated with himself. He's been talking this week about, feeling frustrated and feeling the pressure and that kind of stuff. And I do think that with Richarlison, we saw that a lot last season. Like he never really got in his stride because he never got enough game time because of course he's never going to with Kane in the team. Without Kane there, he should get a good run. And I do think he's the type of player like we've seen for Brazil that when he gets going, he can be a really great player.
I don't think it's so much about him. It's about the team learning to play without Kane. Because they've gone from a striker, the best striker in the world, who drops deep, makes things happen in midfield, comes into the box, knows exactly how to position, to suddenly playing with Richarlison, who isn't playing that role. He's playing very close to the penalty area. They're struggling to get the ball to him. They're learning how to play with Maddison, who's chief creator, and now he's potentially injured. I think what Richarlison's doing is kind of okay because he's busy, his work rate's still really high. He's just not getting opportunities.
Yeah, maybe. I think we've spent a lot of this summer learning to play without Harry Kane. Like in a lot of the pre-season matches, he'd only played for half of them or not at all. And actually, I think our attack has looked better in many ways. As a unit, we've looked really good going forward. And Maddison it's really just Sonny that's got to learn how to play in this new system, because he's so used to having Kane there feeding him all the time. I think Kulusevski's adapted really well to having Maddison and to the type of position that he's going to take, that slightly wider, but swapping in and out with Royale or Pedro Porro on that side. Sonny, we're not seeing that so much with Destiny on the other side. We're not seeing that kind of interchanging and Sonny, he took a while last year, didn't he, with Perisic there, to learn how to play with somebody different. He's got to learn that with Maddison. Maddison's playing all the right balls to Richarlison, by the way. They just haven't connected yet. And I think it's that. So Maddison's sending the balls in the right places for Richarlison. The opportunities are coming, but he's not putting them away yet. And I think once he starts putting them away, we might see that confidence grow in him, and hopefully he'll improve. But right now, I think if you want to be invested in Spurs, obviously not right this second because of the injury worries, but Maddison is the one that you do want in that Spurs team, not Richarlison. With I know you said with Chelsea, with Arsenal and Havertz, I think there are so many better options to have in that Arsenal team if you want an Arsenal attacker. And by the way, they're not exactly setting the world on fire in attack right now, Arsenal. So having Havertz, who's kind of at the back of the pile for the Arsenal,
why I've got RT
options.
Whitley's comment on, because it's similar to Richarlison in the sense that international-wise, Havertz and Richarlison look like world-class players, and then for their clubs. And we thought with Arsenal, that he might be a bit better, but I still don't think he's playing in the right kind of role. I think think Jesus coming back would be big. Would be big for him. But yeah. One good question here from SMB. Mardon? What the hell's that? Never heard that phrase before. Is that a phrase?
Having a Mard? Yeah. He's having a Mard.
Got a Mard.
Having a Mard. Yeah. Mard. If you're in a Mard, like you're having a strop, a Mard.
Okay. Having a Mard on. That's very good.
There's a song about having. I'm not singing it, but I'll send you a link to it afterwards.
Sam doesn't love to talk about Spurs. RT, absolutely, yeah. But it's all stuff.
You asked me about Richarlison. Like, if I'm asked to speak about Spurs,
I'm saying you love it.
I will.
You do love to speak about. I love to talk about Brighton. That's just how it is. Tan, thoughts on Odegaard over Martinelli? Do you get to pick one?
So, but again, like what you say about Jesus coming back, I think Jesus coming back is absolutely mad for Martinelli, or make him really good. It's good for him. He's not in a Mard. Martinelli won't be Mardy. It's just Havertz and Richarlison that might be a bit Mardy. I've lost my train of thought. Martinelli, I think Jesus unlocks him. Jesus being there will make Martinelli a better option in my opinion. So if I had Martinelli, I wouldn't swap to Odegaard. If I didn't have either, I don't think I would invest in either. That if that makes sense, because I think there are other options that you could go to though, like performing really well in the midfield role. The likes of Mbeumo if you don't have him. You could have a look at Foden if you don't have him. Because I'm assuming you've already got Saka. If you don't have any Arsenal at all right now, then maybe you go Odegaard just because of that penalty thing. But I do think Martinelli, once Jesus is back, will be back to the Martinelli that we had last season and that we all loved.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier about Arsenal not quite clicking is bang on. It's the good game against Fulham and the fixtures toughen a little bit. You've got players like Mbeumo on penalties, players like Matoma. I'd be prioritising players like Jackson, Alvarez, Foden. I think I agree. I wouldn't be making the switch. I wouldn't be swapping Martinelli for Odegaard, for example, and I wouldn't be buying either anyway. So I think whoever you've got, I've got Odegaard and Saka, and I'm just going to stick with those for a bit because I'm interested to see how the penalty thing kind of develops. But Odegaard's underlying numbers are terrible. They're really poor. Saka's aren't great, but Odegaard's are rubbish. So if he's going to have to rely on penalties that he may or may not have, I think it's a bit of a risk. Let's do that. Chintan, you didn't answer my super chat. Chintan, you were the first super chat we answered right at the start of the stream. Unless you've put in another one. We spent about 5 minutes on that, going through the team and selecting. So oh God, you've got to go back to the mess that was the start of the stream, but it is there.
We did do it, I promise.
We did.
I promise we did.
James Cant, Man United are killing me this season. Yeah, it's not been good, has it?
No. And like I said a couple of times before, like Bruno Fernandes is the point in my team that I'm looking at as my weak point. but the underlying numbers are good for him. And I do think Manchester United will be better once they get a proper number 9 playing and Rashford goes back out wide. That'll improve things. And, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about selling Onana this week, and I'm an Onana owner, and I haven't had any kind of thoughts about selling him. Maybe when I get to wildcard I might, if there's better options elsewhere. But right now he's making good saves. He's likely to be in the bonus points if the clean sheet stands, and it's Nottingham Forest, so it could easily stand this week. Man United aren't great, but they're killing everyone. So if you've got one Manchester United attacking option, if you've got a Rashford or a Bruno in your team, I really wouldn't be stressing about it. Like, I would just hold them and for this week, and then if they don't return this week, then sell them. I think the difference is if you have both. If you have Bruno and Rashford, I would not be holding both of them.
No, I'm glad to hear you say that after I've sold one. It's still gonna be a nervy watch, like it so often is with Bruno, because he creates so much for everyone else, but they can't score.
No,
but
exactly.
You always feel like he's got a massive hole in him because his passes are brilliant, but he takes so few shots. He had a good header. Well, actually, he had a terrible header, but a good chance from a header in the last game. But you're mostly banking on assists and shots from outside the box, and I think that's how it's going to be at Forest again, because they're going to defend very, very deep as well, and I think they're going to frustrate Man U. So. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised if Fernandes got a 10-point score against Forest, but equally, I wouldn't be surprised if he blanked either. So, two attackers for me is a bit much.
Yeah, I agree.
Final question we'll take, because I've seen a couple of mentions of him. Diaby's popular, Watkins is popular. What about Bailey? He's suddenly smashing it.
Yeah. He suddenly is, and so is Douglas Luiz, to be fair, as well. Like, all of a sudden, like, those two starting to just pop themselves on the radar, with Luca Dean actually as well. If you want a defender, like, popping himself up there on the radar. Fixtures are a bit mixed, but until European football kicks off for Villa, I think that they are really nice options, and they're great differentials as well, because they're not, like you say, with Bailey, very lowly owned. Nobody's really going there. Really good performance from them in midweek against Hibs. It was against Hibs rather than, another Premier League side. But when I look at the fixtures that they have coming up, I think there's plenty of opportunities for goals in those games. And investing in one of Aston Villa attackers, I think, is a really wise idea. And if you are thinking, I do want to sell Watkins because I want to go to Jackson, then having a Aston Villa midfielder, I think, makes a lot of sense. So having somebody like Bailey, like Louise, depending upon budget, like Diaby, really good idea.
Cracking stream, guys, says Sicilian FPL. Thank you so much.
Has it been?
Is that true? I'm not sure.
It feels like it's been a bit bonkers this stream.
I'm very stressed and in desperate need of a beer as soon as we finish. I don't mind Bailey, but I just think you go Diaby. I know Bailey's got the points, big haul against Everton, but I just think Diaby's better and less injury prone. We've seen Bailey the last couple of years just not feature enough. He went off against Everton, didn't he? He's gone off early in both games. He was fit to start last night, but you're always going to be sweating about his minutes. Just go for Diaby.
And particularly once you get that weekend stuff going on, I think that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, roller coaster.
What, this whole stream has been a roller coaster, or owning Bailey?
Yep. and I imagine owning Bailey would be one as well. Right, everyone, thank you so much for all your questions. Thank you for your patience as well. I'm going to properly look into the sound issue. I genuinely don't know what is causing it. It's the same setup I use for Black Box. Only problems there. I did a stream earlier today on my own. No problems there. It just seems like it's something to do with us. Sam, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether you're just too loud, but you sound completely fine to me. Like, coming into my ears, you do not sound too loud at all. So I don't know what is going on.
And it's weird because I do so many streams with this mic all set up in exactly the same spot. It literally doesn't move.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I
mean, even the bars. I mean, look at the bars. The bars are about the same for each. Maybe mine's going up a little bit. Anyway, we're going to investigate, and hopefully next week we will do it. Thank you, John. Thank you, FPL. Yellow Army. Thank you, Boo Bear. Appreciate all of these. I'm going to go for a beer and a cry, and we'll see you next week.
See you later, guys. Have a great week.